Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Unstuck Movement. I'm your host, as always, Rob Z. This platform was created to help you break those chains in your life that are holding you back personally and professionally. I bring incredible guests on here who have incredible stories of breakthrough. Today, we have Mark Collins with us on the podcast. And Mark, you love talking about identity, so I want to talk about identity. How can we
Awesome.
understand for ourselves, because there's so many distractions, so many things in life pulling us in so many different directions, trying to label us and decide what our identity is for us. But how can we understand what our true identity is?
Yeah, that's a great question, Robin. And I love what you're talking about, things pulling us in directions. What I tell people typically is you're either living from who you're created to be or what your life has told you, right? Typically, what we're doing is living out the life that our life has told us. So if you are somebody who's challenged in a relationship or you've had an experience or a background that's caused you to have some challenges in your life, a lot of times we take those on as an identity statement. And so for the people that I work with, I tell them that identity is who you are apart from your experiences. And by the way, apart from your successes. It's the man or woman looking back in the mirror, and it is the person who creates success. The challenge with a lot of the folks I talk to and work with is they use their success as a substitute for identity, or they live from a past that has limited them on their future. And so for me, I let them know that if we could take those two things aside, your past, the experiences you've walked through, not that they don't matter, but they shouldn't tell you who you are,
Mhm.
and set your successes aside, which are an amazing outcome of who you're created to be, but a bad substitute for who you're created to be. Well, that guy that's looking back in the mirror, that's the person that you are. And so in that place, the more you understand who you are, the more you understand the trajectory and the success and the fulfillment that you're able to have in your life.
I love it, man. And it's so important. And it's such a constant redirection we have to make with ourselves. So I can't wait to dive into this more with you and learn more about you and how this became your mission and your message. This platform, the Unstuck Movement, was created solely for this reason, to find these stories of breakthrough, real stories, true testimonies of breakthrough, to show you that it's possible for you to get over any hurdle, to break through any plateau that you have in your life, anywhere you're stuck, right? There is a formula for finding that breakthrough for your next level. And also, no matter how long you've been stuck in something, it's not going to stay that way. It doesn't have to stay that way. And these are examples of that being true for others, so it can be true for you also. We're sponsored by the Connected Leaders Academy. Check out connectedleadersacademy.com. Over 450 heart-centered servant leader entrepreneurs serving each other, helping each other grow from all over the world. And also, I want to encourage you that if you're an expert in your field, but you want to be the go-to authority in what you do, you want to leave a lasting impact on people's lives, and also make incredible connections that'll enrich your professional and personal life, I encourage you to launch your own platform today. You can join the Pro Podcaster Academy at robzwentz.com. Today, Mark Collins with us, the founder of Freedom for Life and author of Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, Not by Default, has helped hundreds of individuals overcome imposter syndrome and fear to live with purpose and confidence in their business, relationships, and life. He's passionate about equipping people to unleash their inner hero and create impactful change. So I'm curious, Mark, usually the message that we have came from a mess that we had. What was your old identity, and how did that change for you over time?
Yeah, that's a great question, Robert. I appreciate that. So, the thing I talked about earlier, living from who you're created to be, what your life has told you, obviously, for me and for you and everybody else, our life has told us something. And so my life was growing up with a dad who was, very strong personality, and I he was also in the military. So for us, it was also going to a lot of locations. So I tell people by the time I was 12 years old, we lived in 5 states and 1 foreign country, which, if you're counting, means that for me, 6th grade was 12 years old. So that means that every 2 years of my life, from birth until that point, I lived in a new location, new state, new culture, new people. And so you can either thrive and become that outgoing kind of bubbly personality, or you can kind of be an introvert. And so that was the person I was. But all along, even going into my teenage years, adult years, I believe that there was more than the life I was living, that I didn't have to deal with fear of failure, imposter syndrome, didn't have to deal with those things that were telling me that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't capable, that I wasn't able to have the success that I saw in other people's lives. So for me, growing up and getting into adulthood, it was, I title of my book is Life by Design, Not by Default. It was using those default mechanisms which is success, right? So for us, if we feel like we're not somebody who's worthy or valued, the things we typically do are to try and succeed it away. So for me, it was entrepreneurship and athletics and academics, believing that once I became successful in those areas, now all of a sudden I was going to be confident and assured and passionate and purposeful, and I'd have the life that I was meant to have. And come to find out, those things just came along for the ride. So when I was successful in business, I still had that fear of failure, that imposter syndrome that nobody knew about. The words that you're telling yourself, the waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning, the doubts, the fears, the struggle, the anxiety. And in that place, I was really trying to figure out, okay, well, I believe there's more than this. This can't be the sum total of everything. And because of the default success mechanism not working, how can I figure out how to become that person? So for me, very quickly, it was, unpacking personal development, reading courses or taking courses, reading books, talking to people who knew what they were talking about, and trying to implement the things they were doing to, they said, become the person I was created to be. Well, a lot of them brought change, which brought habit, but it didn't bring transformation. And so for me, a lot of them didn't work, right? So you're successful for a while as long as you maintain those habits. And when those habits are gone, now all of a sudden you kind of pair back to who you thought you were to begin with.
Mm.
And then for me, it was a transformational journey, really a faith walk of trying to figure out who I was created to be. And in that place of really exploring, for me, Christianity, it was starting to understand and unpack that there was an identity that I had, that there was a created value that I had, that I wasn't the sum total of my past, nor the successes that I was walking through, that there was value innately in me. And so I started to unpack those in my own life and try and figure it out. And that was the start of an amazing journey and transformation.
It's a similar story, I guess, to me in the way of like, searching out for all these other people to tell me who I am, right? And
Yeah.
you pay these people money, and not saying that it's not all part of the journey, because I've learned so much and I've gained so much from it.
Yeah.
But when you're trying to get the world to tell you who you are, you're gonna miss the mark somewhere. Right.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, who did you feel like, who were you becoming that you knew it wasn't the right way? Because I've had this same experience, right? And I've tried to explain this to people. It's like, you're headed in the right direction, but something's off. What was it that was off that redirected you?
Well, it was that thing. So there was a person I believed I could be, and there was a person who was showing up. And what I believed was, when I became successful in business, or, got my black belt in martial arts, or, got my academic degree, went to university and got a degree, that all of a sudden I would become a different person, that fear of failure, that imposter syndrome, that fear, doubt, and worry would now go away, because now I've proven to myself and everyone around me that I was a person of value and worth. And
Mhm.
what I found was, apart from understanding who you are, those things are just a substitute for identity. And the problem in them, like you mentioned, is that it's habits that lead to exhaustion, not transformation. And
Mhm.
so I would find that as long as I maintain those habits, right, whether it's mantras or affirmations or trying to succeed, I call it the hamster wheel of success. You work really hard, you succeed, and the joy from it lasts about 10 minutes. And then you have to do it again, and then you have to do it again after that. And so there was this place of saying, this isn't working. This default mechanism of how to become successful and find value and worth in who you are wasn't working.
Mhm.
And in that place, really trying to figure out, well, and again, being on a spiritual journey at the same time, starting to figure out, well, maybe there's a different way. There's a life by design, not the default life that everybody else is saying. And it's the funny, Rob, because a lot of the people that I work with, they have that default idea, and not no harm or foul. It's just what we've been told, right? When I'm successful, I'll have everything I need. I'll be confident in all those things that come along with it. And I find the people that I work with are a lot like me. They believed it, but it didn't work out. And they get to the top of that mountain and they're like, well, nothing's changed. Something's wrong here. And so in that place for me was figuring that out.
So mentioning like these certain habits that you put in place worked while you were using them, but didn't work when you let them go. What daily habits do you recommend to combat imposter syndrome? What did work that stuck?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's a phrase I use a lot, and I tell it to people. I say, you can't habit your way to freedom. And what I mean is this: a lot of times we use habits as a substitute for transformation. And what I mean is, it's not a habit that I maintain to try and convince myself of who I am. It's living out of who I'm created to be, so that that man can be unleashed in the world, that hero in hiding that I believe you mentioned earlier. And in that place is starting to understand that. So for me, your habits need to be aligned with identity. And so one is affirmations, right? Telling yourself who you are until that person shows up. Well, there's a difference between me having a generic idea of, right, these generic mantras and affirmations of I am a person of value, I am a person of worth, I am a person of strength, whatever those things are that you're trying to tell yourself that you really don't believe.
Mm-hmm.
You're using them basically to kind of combat the doubt and the worry, the fear that is in your mind, those thoughts that you're dealing with. And so what I tell people is you're basically trying to bludgeon your thoughts into alignment with who you believe and are hoping you can be. And then the next time it happens, you do it again. And the next time it happens, you do it again. It really comes down to this. The habit you use to get there, you have to use to maintain there.
Mm.
And as a person, again, a person of faith in my life, I understood that transformation was the goal, not change. Change is something I have to manage. Transformation is a person I become.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, it starts with identity. It starts with who are you created to be? Start with that. And from that place, create affirmations from that. So does it mean you have daily habits? Yeah, I remind myself every day of who I am. But the truth is, over time, like for this podcast or what I'm doing this week, right? When you start to show up as the person you believe you're created to be, when you start to show up as the person and that transformational journey is in place, I don't have to remind myself today who I am. I don't have to come in with confidence and assurance because I know that I am that person, that person who has something that's of impact, that has something that they're working on, that people are going to want to know about. And it's not a place of arrogance, it's a place of value and identity that you're living from. So affirmations for sure. Living it out for sure. Me as a person, a spiritual person, I connect with God on a daily basis. It's that relationship that informs everything I do. And in that place, I start to see the life I'm created for.
Yeah, as you're saying all of this, I know for myself, somebody might be thinking to themselves, "Well, how do I know that I'm the person that I'm supposed to be?" So I've thought about this for myself, like how do I know that for me? And I came to the integrity of I know what I'm supposed to be doing, like internally. We all have a compass, and everybody's compass is like the moral compass has a lot of similarities, but each person's has minor tweaks and its own personality, right? So I feel like
Yeah.
in mine, if I'm not, I know there's things that I'm supposed to be doing, and if I'm breaking those promises to myself or ways that I'm supposed to be being, and if I'm breaking those promises to myself, then I can't show up as who I was created to be because I'm actually not listening and following along to what God has put these things on our heart that we're
Yeah.
supposed to be doing these sorts of things and supposed to be this kind of person. Do you ascribe to that also? How do you look at that? Like, did you find you were more being who you were as you kept your promises to yourself?
So it's a great question. So how do I unpack this quickly? So here's the truth of the matter. It has nothing to do with what I do. It has everything to do with who I am. And what I mean is the things that I do are an outcome of who I'm created to be.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that place, the things that I do, right? So the habits that I have, I tell people this, no harm or foul with anybody else, but I'm not a heroin addict. I am not a drug abuser. I don't do those things in my life. The reason I don't is because that's not innately who I'm created to be. I know who I am, and so I live from that place. So in that place, you split the things you do from the person you are. The things I do are an outcome of who I am. They don't create who I am. But many times we try and use habits as a substitute for identity. And as I talked about it earlier, you can't habit your way to identity or freedom. So in the place it's really starting to unpack that. For us, it starts with an I am statement. Who are you created to be? Right? And it's writing it down. It's saying, I'm not the sum total of my past and I'm not the sum total of my successes, but who is the person looking back in the mirror? So I have the people I work with create an I am statement. For me, an I am statement would be something like this. I'm a person of compassion and care. I'm a person that's passionate about the things I believe in and I follow through until I succeed in them. I'm empathetic to those who are in need and I care for those that I love. That's an I am statement. And in that place, what does that look like lived out? So the habits that I do are coming from a place of who I am. They're not trying to create or reinforce who I am.
Mm-hmm.
So it is that place of who are you? And so in that place, why do I spend time, in the morning meditating and spending time with God? Because that's who I'm created to be, and it's a relationship I have. Why do I invest in people and try and better them in the things that they do and provide tools and resources for them to really live out their life mastery journey? Because I'm passionate to see lives changed and people transformed. So in that place, those things I do are an outcome of who I am. They don't create who I am. So when I start to focus on that, Now, all of a sudden, well, what happens, Rob, when your business doesn't work out? For many of us, it's an identity statement that says I'm failing, not that the business is. When
Mhm.
relationship is in a struggle, you're having a struggle in the relationship you have. It's not this is a disagreement that needs to be walked through. This is a conversation or some hard conversations that need to be had. No, this is a value statement about me. I'm not worthy to be loved. When you don't know who you are, your past is telling you who you're going to become. And in that place, you live from that. And so for us, it really unpacks that into who are you created to be. Creating an I am statement gives you, first off, affirmations to tell yourself
Mhm.
and a target to shoot for. That's not me trying to measure up to somebody, but really me being unleashed. There's a difference between the two.
Oh, it's really good, man. I love that. Is this where the concept of effortless excellence comes from?
Yeah, what I tell people is this: effortless excellence. So, life mastery, if I could give it a definition, life mastery is you living from who you're created to be at the highest level you're created for in every area of your life. And for me, there's 5 areas: the spiritual, the relational, vocational, physical, financial. So in these 5 areas, it's saying, okay, well, who am I created to be, and what does the life look like that I'm meant to live at the highest level I'm meant to live at in each of these areas? And so what I tell the folks that I work with is the more I understand who I'm created to be, the easier it is for me to invest in those things that I'm passionate about that bring the results I desire. And
Mm.
that's where effortless excellence comes from, because I'm literally just showing up as who I'm created to be, right? Gifts, talents, abilities, character, values. And then that plays. The effortless excellence doesn't mean challenges don't come up, or things, problems aren't needing to be resolved, or challenges aren't needing to find answers for. But what it does mean is that I don't have to work myself up to be me, right? I don't have to work myself up to be confident. I don't have to have mantras that I remind myself over and over again before I go into a meeting or a trampoline I jump on to bring energy to my life. No, when I can live from who I'm created to be, there's an effortlessness to it, but there's an excellence in it. Because in that place, the people I work with, and even in my own journey, when I started to understand who I was, it wasn't that I was just successful, I was fulfilled. I was living at the highest level of passion that I had for those things in my life. And in that place, it's effortless excellence because I don't have to measure up to be me. I just need to show up as me.
Yeah, man, I love that. Just showing up, being you. And so what I've found in my personal life, and I've actually been just working through this over the past number of months, noticing that like I get jealous of people who are just authentically themselves and they just know who they are, you know?
Mm,
And so I was like, man, why does that bother me that this person just is just being them and they know exactly who they are and they're totally cool with it. It was because I haven't taken that step with God of like, okay, knowing exactly who I am. And I mean, I'll read the scripture that says that I'm going to spend the rest of my days in prosperity, my years in contentment. I will have no fear of bad news. My heart is steadfast. Like I read these things, but am I really living from them and like believing them? Like, is that my identity? And so as I start to just spend time believing that and like receiving it, I can tell that already kind of shifting in the sense of like, it's nice to see somebody being themselves because I'm also just being me. And for whatever reason, just my own personality, I've never known who I was supposed to be. I could be like a kind of a chameleon, right?
mm.
And I've always been kind of jealous of people who like just unabashedly are themselves. Maybe even just out of just complete unawareness. They just are them and that's who they are. Like that always kind of drove me nuts. And so it's really interesting to hear the way that you talk about this because that identity was already given to us. We just have to un unearth it. It's not like finding it like it's a mystery. No, it's just right there. We have to realize it and own it. And building that relationship with God is what reveals that to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think innately, to be totally honest, even if you're not a spiritual person, I believe that inside every person, there's this belief that there's more than where I'm at.
Mhm.
And many times we're trying to fill it with those outward outcomes, right? It's the relationship, it's the income, it's the business, it's the car I have, whatever the thing is that we're using. We're trying to fulfill an inward need with an outward accomplishment. And in that place, you start to see that there's a lack. But in finding out who you are, you really start to live from that place. And if I could give you something really quickly, here's something, because you're a Christian, I would tell you this: try and find me somebody in the Bible who got equipped for the things they were walking into.
Yeah.
What I
Nobody.
mean, exactly, because like I mean, I could name 100 of them, but I'll just start with one that I love. Gideon, a young man in a book called Judges, that was doing work for his family, hiding from people who were taking their things, taking their stuff, their produce, their increase in their lives. And in that place, an angel told him, he said, "Greetings, mighty man of valor." Told him he was going to save his people from those enemies taking their stuff. And subsequently, after trying to convince the angel that he's wrong, he walks in and fulfills that vision, that destiny for his life. Here's the thing that didn't happen from the time he was told who he was, right? Identity statement, mighty man of valor, to he accomplished the thing he was called to do: save his people from the enemies of God, overcome them so that his people can be thriving and successful. The one thing that didn't happen in between was he didn't go to school. He didn't have to accomplish anything. He didn't have to get a degree. He didn't go to military training. He didn't do any of the things we think we're supposed to do. If I want to have the thing I'm supposed to be created for, well, then I need to measure up. It doesn't mean that you don't gain knowledge and wisdom and on those things that you need to, right? But what it does mean is there's one thing that's absolutely irreplaceable that nobody thinks about. It's the truth that Gideon, from the time, even before he was spoken of, but when he was told he was a mighty man of valor, till he was successful, he was already equipped for the life he was walking into. Mm-hmm. When you start to understand that you're equipped for the things that you're walking into, as I tell people, you're the answer to the circumstance you're walking into. Or as I told somebody yesterday, are you the answer to the room you're walking into, or the question to be figured out? Many times we think we're the question to be figured out. Can I do it? Will I achieve it? Am I going to give a great presentation? Am I going to get this sale? Am I going to be able to have this conversation with the girl so she will date me or marry me or whatever? Right? It's in the place of understanding that you're already equipped for the life you're living, that you stop using it as a substitute for your life, and you start to allow yourself to be unleashed. When I walk in knowing that I'm the answer, I start to find the answers. I don't try and make up something so that I can feel good about who I am.
Right. Yeah, that's really good. I love that. And it's such a subtlety that it can be easy to miss because we get so overwhelmed so quickly. So, I always think of, praying without ceasing, keeping these things on your mind, because they need to be there if you want to walk in that identity that you're talking about. So we got to take a break real fast. When we come back, though, when we talk about business and entrepreneurs and people trying to better themselves and personal development, fear of failure is always near the top of that list, because fear of failure is always kind of the thing that will keep you from getting started. And so many people, we all have so much greatness inside of us, but until we start, it's hard to see that greatness, and that fear of failure will keep you held back. It can keep you held back your entire life. What would you say is the first step in overcoming that fear of failure and something new that you're stepping into? We'll talk about that in just 1 minute. Are you struggling to make consistent, valuable content for yourself? Do you want to have an efficient and effective way to create content that attracts the people that you want to connect with in life, the people you want to build relationships with in business? Do you want to be the go-to authority at what you do, at what you're great at? Would it be helpful for you if you had a platform that connects you to incredible people in your industry? The kind of platform that gets you leads and lands you clients without you having to beat down anybody's door or blow up anybody's inbox. Whether you're already creating content or you're desiring to start and it's something that's been kind of burning inside of you for a while, I urge you and encourage you to check out the Pro Podcaster Academy. Get started right now. Join the waitlist at robzwentz.com.
Hi, my name is Jose Escobar, and I'm the founder and CEO of the Connected Leaders Academy. We're a growing tribe, a community of entrepreneurs all over the world globally. If you're an entrepreneur and you're looking to grow personally and professionally, scale your influence, develop your skill sets, move the needle in your business, more clients, more money, more profit, the bottom line, and of course, grow your circle and your network like never before, join the Connected Leaders Academy today. Check me out on Instagram and on Facebook, the @ JAESCO25. We look forward to having you join us. Take care.
Mark, just really enjoying this conversation and the the knowledge and wisdom that you're pouring out on us today. And talking about the fear of failure, people having so much of a hard time getting started. What would you say is that first step to overcoming that fear?
Yeah, I think to me, there's two steps. The first one is the one I drive my wife crazy because I tell her identity is everything. And I talk about it all the time. So fear of failure really comes from an identity statement that you're giving yourself. What I find that's happened in my own life and the people that I work with is that failure isn't an activity I have not accomplished. It's an identity statement about me. It's not that this task's failed or, I talk about the successful business my wife had. Well, it was the fifth business we had. The first four, we learned from. The fifth one we succeeded in. But the challenge is many times when you fail, it's not that the business failed or the activity failed, but I failed or I'm a failure. So fear of failure isn't an activity that you're not accomplishing. It's an identity statement that you're living. And so first and foremost, it's identity. Who are you created to be apart from successes, failures, or your past? So if you get that out of the way, here's the second one. What's the definition you're given for failure? What I invest in people with and try and give them the understanding of is that your failure is really just a report card that lets you know something you need to learn. Mm-hmm. For any of us, and you know that because you're successful in the entrepreneur space and the things you're doing, there's nobody who is successful completely 100% the very first time they've tried it, right? That effortless excellence I talk about isn't me not walking through challenges and finding answers to issues that I'm dealing with. It's me understanding that I am the answer and I'm going to find the answers. So in that place of failure, what is it? Is it an identity statement that you're taking? And in that place, I've dealt with that, right? When early in my life, and as I was walking through my life mastery journey, I would try and control outcomes because I have that fear of, well, what happens if it doesn't work? Or I would limit myself in how, high I reach or how big I dream because, the big dreams are pretty scary because they come with the big answers and the big challenges. So in that place, what is failure? What's your definition for it? If there's an anxiety that you're taking when you're either not succeeding and or you're thinking about what happens if you don't, then that's a great indicator that your identity is in the things you're doing. It's not you being unleashed in who you're created to be. It doesn't mean that challenges won't happen and some things won't succeed. But if it's a place of learning and growing, then they don't matter. What matters is you focusing towards the goal and the vision that you have.
Yeah, I was just having this conversation in the last episode. Without the vision, all problems just seem like problems. But with a strong vision, the problems now become opportunities, and they're all stepping stones, right? So the problems don't. I was thinking this, like, wow, if you create a real strong vision for your life, especially if it's aligned with what God's will is for your life, there's going to be things that come up that are like, wow, this seems like it might be a problem, but actually in reality, it's exactly what that thing is exactly what you need to get to the next level. And the view of how you look at life, that joy that comes in, count all these things joy, you're going to start seeing joy in everything. Because like, oh, wow, what an opportunity, instead of this thing's tearing me apart.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing that elevates you to the next level is the test and the challenge you walk through at this level.
Yeah. I'm curious for you, you mentioned your marriage and just thinking about imposter syndrome showing up in marriage and family life. How have you dealt with that?
That's a great question. I think, what I tell people is who you are in one area, you are in all areas. And so that same challenge that sometimes we have in business where we're feeling like we're not good enough, we're not measuring up, we can feel like that in our relationships as well. When we're not getting along or we're, at each other's throats or whatever the term is you want to use, sometimes your relational challenges will kind of give you a bit of a pause because it's, again, you're living from who you're created to be or what your life has told you. In many cases, the relationship we're in now isn't the first one. And in that place, the others haven't worked out well. And so what are your relationships and your past experiences telling you? Mm-hmm. That you're a person who's not worthy of love, of care, of compassion, or that you're somebody who walks through challenging times and you create deep, meaningful relationships. What I tell people for myself and my marriage, I've been married actually 33 years. This last Christmas Eve was 33 years with my wife. And I tell people this thing that kind of freaks them out. I say, my wife is a benefit to my life. She's not a necessity. If my wife was a necessity, then I'd receive my identity from her being in my life. But because she's a benefit in my life, a blessing in my life, not something that's a necessity, I can stand and understand my identity apart from who she is. But in that place, because of that, I get to invest in the relationship in the ways that she needs because I'm showing up as who I'm created to be. I believe that you're in a marriage because you guys were meant to be in that marriage, that it's a relationship that was ordained for you in that place. I'm created for the relationship we're going to have, and so are you. And when I
Mhm.
can show up as who I'm created to be, when I can show up from the place of identity and the assurance that I am somebody of worth and value and investing that value in the relationship we have, I give her permission to do the same. What I tell the folks sometimes, and a guy in the relationship this last week I was talking to, I said this: when you don't understand who you're created to be, your wife has to make up the difference.
Mm.
Can't have challenges, we can't have struggles, we can't have hard things that we talk about because there's this insecurity and issues in me that I don't have the ability to deal with. But
Yeah.
when I understand who I'm created to be, now all of a sudden I give her permission to just be who she is, and in that place create a relationship that's better than we could have ever expected.
Yeah, man. Because when you're struggling with who you are and you're expecting your spouse or anybody in your life to step up to fill that, you're always going to be disappointed. They're always going to be frustrated,
Yep.
right? And there's always going to be those problems there, and it's really crucial for all of us to take that journey of self-awareness and self-discovery, and it can be really really hard to do, especially the older you get. It can be really really hard to do because you have so many layers already on top, right?
Yeah.
But there's no better time than now to make that decision. So I absolutely love that. It's so powerful, and it doesn't happen enough, but I think it's happening more, at least in the circles that you and I are in, right? So
Yeah.
it's the company that you keep, but it's wonderful to know that there's so many people causing people, leading people to having these breakthroughs in their life. Tell us a little bit about your book. They can get your ebook, Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, Not by Default, at freedom-for-life.net. Talk about just, why you created the book and how it's impacting people's lives.
I appreciate it. So, um, first off, I'm surprised that it is impacting people's lives, to be totally honest. When I wrote the book, I had no idea the amount of people that would really learn from it, would resonate with, and they'd find great value in it. And it's not because I don't think I have a lot to offer. It's just that I thought that the standard book kind of thing, a format of, investing in people wasn't something people did anymore. There's audio books and there's video teachings, there's YouTube channels and all the things that we do. So really, to be totally honest, Rob, there was one reason why I wrote the book, and it was because my mom told me I needed to write one. She passed away April of last year, but before she did, she was my biggest fan. My wife is an amazing supporter, but that support you get from your mom, she would always want to, when I was teaching or preaching, she would want to get those videos from me. I was always talking to her every week when we talked about the things I was doing and how I was impacting people's lives. And she told me I should write a book. Well, you write about what you know. And so for me, it was really not just living out this life mastery journey, but investing it in others through the online course I have called Life Mastery. Well, the book, Life Mastery, Living Life by Design, Not by Default, was really trying to give people a shortcut guide to their life mastery journey. If you've not invested in the full course, which has, one-on-one teaching, ongoing courses, 7 hours of amazing and insightful transformational teachings. But when you're not available or able to do that, I wanted to give people a shortcut guide, like with your phone or your car. We have these shortcut guides that are given to us with the product that we buy, and it's that thing that gets you started today so that you can use the product. So I can use my phone and kind of navigate through it and do the things I want to do. Well, that's what I wanted the book to be. Before you are able to invest in a full-fledged, full-blown, robust course, I wanted to give them tools and strategies that you could read a chapter today, you could implement it this week, and find transformation this month. And so we've created, chapters in there about identity. How do you unpack your identity? About mastering your thoughts and words and your actions, right? All transformation comes from mastering thoughts, words, and actions. And so giving tools and strategies in those chapters for people to really be able to implement them today. There's the kind of full journey that you're on. I call Life Mastery a journey. And it's something that does take time, right? It's taken time for me to get to where I'm at. It's going to take time for me to get to where I'm created to be. But in that place, how can I give people tools today that they can actually implement and use? And so that's what I wanted the book to be. And the title Life by Design, Not by Default was on purpose, because what I find in everybody's life, including my own, apart from a transformational journey, we're living by default. What the world and everybody else around us is telling us brings impact or brings success in our life. But there is a life by design that if you can start to understand and implement those tools and strategies, you can unlock that hero in hiding, the person I believe everybody's created to be. And if I could address something really quickly, the thing you talked about earlier, there is work that's involved in it. But the thing I try and help people to focus on is understanding there is a hero inside of you, whatever level of success you've had, whatever level of fulfillment, whatever level of relationship and fulfillment you've had in that area as well. There's more for you, and there's more that the world needs from you. And it's not to give you a guilt trip, but to give you an observation and an idea that there's an impact in the world that has your name on it. And so there is a journey to get there, but the alternative to me just isn't successful or satisfactory at all. What I want people to be is fulfilled, to believe that they're passionately living out the life they're created for, and to let them know, especially through this ebook and the strategies in it, that there's a path to get there.
Incredible, man. Absolutely. And like you said, life by default. I don't think enough people think about the fact that why are these things happening to me? How these circumstances that I might have in my life, it's most likely because you're living life by default and you're not deciding your own design, right? You're not actively taking part in that. You're letting things just kind of happen.
Yeah.
And there's a tangible switch. When you make that switch, that your life starts to transform, things really start to change, and you start to take ownership of the things that are happening to you, which transforms everything, man. So I love that, Mark. It's so powerful. Make sure you get that book, the ebook Life Mastery, at freedom-for-life.net. Also, as I said before, if you want to be the go-to authority in your field and launch your platform, check out robzwentz.com. Join the Pro Podcaster Academy waitlist right now. Mark, great talking to you. Really great connecting with you. Anything you want to leave the audience with before you sign off?
Really quickly, the one thing I did right through trying all sorts of courses, books, and things, and I created a transformational course because I couldn't find one, but there's one thing I did right throughout the whole process. I refused to give up on myself. If you bet on yourself one more time, I believe you'll find the transformational tools you need. It really is simple as you refusing to give up on the person you believe you created to be and you can be. When you do that, you'll be able to find those tools that you need.
Yeah. Amen, man. I couldn't agree more. Incredible. Well, thank you for your testimony today, another true testimony of breakthrough and for serving other people. This has been another episode of the Unstuck Movement.